welcome back to the Great Workshop. In this lesson, we're going to continue talking about importing and exporting files, as well as your hardware and software setup, okay? So let's go back to Pro Tools. Inside this file tab, we have the import and export area. Now this is where you are able to import your beats, audio, video, all those things into the session. And you're also able to export them. So let's look at the options that we have, okay? So when we go to import, you have session data. Now, the session data is something that you would use if you have your own template. If you're coming to a new studio and you already have your own personal template, and you're like, hey, pull up my template up, this is what the engineer should do, all right? And you should know how to get here too, just in case. So you go to File, Import, and Session Data. This allows you to pull up data from any previous session that you have in regards to audio files and everything from any session that you've had before into this current session. So I'm going to go here and go to one of my old sessions. We're just going to pull up a random one from somewhere. Y'all see how I got my dates going? Yeah. And it's organized. Okay, cool. So now this next window we have is the import session data window, okay? It tells you the source properties, the name, the current session, what type of computer you were on where you created it, how long it is, time code, all this good stuff. You have an array of different options on here. The main ones I always check for is the sample rate conversion option. Okay, so this one allows you to apply the sample rate conversion from whatever they were recording at to wherever you are currently recording at. So in this particular session, the source sample rate, or the sample rate of the session that we're importing the data from, was being recorded at 44.1, but we are currently recording at 48. So it's going to convert it from that 44.1 to the 48 conversion. That way everything runs smoothly, nothing is slowed down, nothing is sped up. Okay, so please make sure that you look at this window right here when you start importing session data from other places, so that way you know everything will line up correctly and there will be no discrepancies about that. Okay, next we have the source. So inside this source window, this is every single track that is inside of the main session that we're importing our information from. This is every single track inside that session, okay? You have your backgrounds, your master track, your hook, everything that they could have ever used in that session is right here. Now, you can decide what you want to take from that session and import it into this new one. So all you have to do is click where it says none. You can click, okay, I want that one. It's going to put it on a new track, okay? So as soon as you click it and it turns blue, they're saying, hey, I want this session. I want this part of the session. I want this track out of the session. So we have our recording track. Let's just grab a hook, and then we can grab a background. And of course, I'm going to grab my master, right? So now when I click OK, we're just saying, hey, Pro Tools, I just want these particular tracks out of that source session into this new one, okay? So now we have our track selected. Now we have our import section. Now, here we can import the tempo from that other section into this one. You can import the key signature, markers, memory locations if they know they had the hook somewhere separately from where you might have your hook. You can make sure all that stuff is lined up. You have your window configurations, and then now you also have the main playlist options, right? So main playlist options is where when we insert these tracks, right, these tracks already have audio and information on them from the previous session. Our session is new. So sometimes you might want to import the audio from a previous session into this new one, right? So let's say we're doing a feature, right? So I want to make sure I have my verse or my hook on there for the new person who may be doing the feature. So in that case, we would definitely import the audio from the previous session into this one. Now you can import replacing the existing playlist, which is kind of crazy, but some people want to do it. You can import overlaying the new or existing playlist, or you can do not import at all. So for me, most of the time what I'm doing is I'm not importing it at all, right? Because this one allows me to just also take the tracks with all the EQ, compression, and plugins on it, but now I have a clean slate on it. So now that I click do not import, I'm gonna click this right here and then click OK and watch what happens. Now it is loading all the information from that last track into our new session. And it's going to give me a little bit of plugin notes. Okay. So now, because I did not click import audio, it's giving me the tracks here, but it's not giving me any information on the tracks. Okay, so now let's see what happens if I do it again and I click import audio. Session data. We're going to do that, and I want to import it. Now that I have imported it, it came with information on it. Do you guys see that? So it came with information on it. If I do it again, one more time, go to File, Import, Session Data. And now if I just want to grab, let's just say I want to grab the reverb or the delay, I can also do that just for the effects that are on it. So let's say I grab this delay. So now it grabbed the delay, and it also saved my busing information that was on it before. Okay, and I have my delay, EQ, and my auto tune still on that track from the previous session. Okay, so that's how you import your information from a previous session into your current session. Okay, we can also, now let's import some audio. So when, let's say we're in our session and you have your beat, and now it's time to get the beat from off your phone into the actual session so you can record on it. You're going to go to File, Import. Now we have audio. You can go click audio and go grab it from wherever you have it saved, and it will import it right into the session. Let's just import something. So when you're importing it, it's going to convert it from wherever you got it from to a wave, because that's what Pro Tools is using to record. Remember when we started our session, we put it in wave format. So whatever type of audio you're bringing into it, it's going to convert it to a wave, which is what we decided when we first opened the project. Okay, so now we have this here. It has our apply sample rate conversion. Everything is going to be tweaked right, and we're going to click done once you have what you want. Now it's going to ask you, where do you want to save this audio that we are importing? Again, it is very imperative that you know where you are saving things when doing a session. Okay, it's nothing worse than the session not being able to find these files, especially if you plan on sending it. So we're going to save it to the audio files folder that is already in the session that we made. And then we're going to click open. And now it's bringing the audio into the session, and it's going to play. Now here we have another window popped up, the audio import options. You can insert it as a new track, or it can go into the clip list, which is over here on the side. And then you also can decide where exactly you would like for it to be inserted at. Okay, so we're going to do it as a new track because I want to hear what we just imported. Click OK, and boom, here's our track with everything we need. So that is how you are able to import this audio, and you can do the same thing that we just did for MIDI, video, all the other forms of media. You can do that same thing. So if we go to import, you got audio, MIDI, video, and clip groups if you're in another group, or another from the other session too. They can do the clip groups folder if you remember that at the top. Okay, so that's how you import. If we're going to export it, this is where we can export different tracks as a different file. You can export the selected tracks that you want as a new session. And then you can export the session info as text. Okay, so if somebody was to break down, and they can read the text and kind of rebuild the whole session from that. Okay, so if we want to do the export the selected tracks as a new session, I have these tracks selected. This is also another easy way to kind of like do sending off just the information you need to another person to get on the song. You can do that. You have the track selected, go to File, Export, track selected as a new session. It's going to save the session copy. We've seen this before. We want to make sure we have our audio files, and you see now it has done the selected tracks only. This is where it gets tricky. So all this stuff is the same. So that selected tracks only. Of course, we want our session plugins. We click OK. And now, once again, we're going to decide where we save it. You save it to the right place, and now you have a whole new session with just the tracks you selected. Okay? So that's how you import and export these files as a section. Exporting the whole song when it's done. So we like to call that, it's not really called exporting, it's called bouncing down when you're in Pro Tools. So you can bounce to disk. That is how you do that. So if we're done with this song, we did the reverb, delay, yeah, we like it, we got our drops done, we love it, we're done. We're going to go to File, Bounce to, and then go to Disk. This is going to bounce the entire song down after you have done all your edits and your mixing, your mastering, down to the bounce files folder. Okay, so now the bounce menu that we have here, the bounce source. So the source is where the music is coming out. Okay, so here our source is whatever this bottom output is. Okay, so our source right here is A12. So make sure your sources match, because it's nothing worse than bouncing the song down and your source is different from in the session versus what you're using to bounce. Okay, so this is going to show you all the different sources that are available to you. All right, so we have our file type. Of course, we have WAV, MP3, AIF, and we also have QuickTime depending on what you're doing. I like to typically send things off as MP3s because it's the same information and it does not take up as much space. Okay, we want to operate efficiently, because once you put the MP3 back into Pro Tools, it's going to convert it to a WAV anyway. So I like to send, if I'm just sending out like a 2-track of the session, MP3. If I'm sending out something to be mixed or mastered, like we're done mixing it and we're sending it to be mastered, then I'm going to make sure I send it out as a WAV, because that collects all the information at the highest point in which it was recorded. Okay. We have our bit depth, our format interleaved. Please make sure it's on interleaved, okay? If it's not on interleaved and you have multiple mono, it's going to bounce it down as 2 different audio files. You're going to bounce it down as a right and a left. Interleave combines these 2 things together and makes it stereo, okay? And then you have mono summed, which is just going to put them all in together as one source of sound. But interleave will make sure you have all of your different panning information, your reverb, delay throws, all that stuff happening at the same time. Make sure you check your bit depth, your sample rate. Now, the conversion options, you can convert during the bounce, you can convert after a bounce, and if you're using Pro Tools 12, you can do offline bounce. Now, offline bounce allows you to bounce the song down without having to listen to it in its entirety, okay? Which is one of my favorite features of Pro Tools 12. Truly a godsend. Okay, so we have that, and you can also import the song after you bounce it. That's always an option, and you can add it to your iTunes library or whatever you're using to listen to music on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so once you're done with that, you click bounce. Once again, it's going to ask you, where do you want to save this? Okay, this is a common theme. Please know where you're saving things. You do not want to get files lost. It's not fun. Okay, so you want to name this song 1 bounce, and then I always like to, if there's not a folder here, I will make a folder for bounce files. If you're using Pro Tools 12, it automatically makes one for you, but I like to make one because I hate trying to find the bounce down that I had from the song inside of the midst of the audio files folder, whereas the same place where we recorded everything. Like, it's going to be too much files, too many things left, right, elastic audio files. Like, just make a bounce files folder, so that way you know every time you bounce it down, it's going to go to this particular folder and you don't have to search for it. Okay, so now that that's done, we know where we're saving it. We're going to click save, and then it's going to bounce it down. Okay, so that is how you export or bounce down information inside of a Pro Tools session. Okay, can't wait to talk to you more about Pro Tools later.
K100, that's crazy.